Good morning, everyone, and thank you again for joining our Get Modern with Microsoft 365 webinar. My name is Stephen Laurie. I'm going to be guiding you through the presentation today. I'm delighted to be joined by my colleagues Bryony Brennan and Andy Wilson in the background, who are going to be helping with the presentation and also getting through some of the question and answer sessions that questions that you might be bringing up. Throughout the presentation, there is a Q&A section within the event. Please feel free to put any questions that you have in there. We might ask some of the questions, Andy might read some of the questions out, or he might get back to you just directly with the answers through the application. If there's anything that you do want to talk to us about after the presentation, please do get in touch. More than happy to answer any questions you've got or discuss your SharePoint and OneDrive needs, as that's what we're going to be discussing today. For those of you who have been on a previous webinar with us, thank you for coming back and joining again. It's good to hear. And a quick apology for sending out a quick link there towards the end to get you on this webinar. It is a security feature that is held within Microsoft Teams, which is excellent, and that is that it prevents you from producing public events as a default. And when we sent the first one out, when Bryony sent the first one out, I'm very grateful for her for doing that. It was set as an in-organisation event only, and we had to quickly change that to make it a public event. And that is a security feature within Teams that you do need to be aware of, and it is there to protect organisations. So I do apologise for having to send that link, the second link out, but hopefully you're all on now. We are also recording this event, so if any of your colleagues weren't able to join today and you would like to get this event to share with your colleagues, please do let Bryony know and she will get the recording across to you. So without further ado, we'll start with our presentation. So we're going to start by looking again at what is Microsoft 365, and I say again because those of you who have been on a previous session with me, we talk about Microsoft 365 and we have a bit of an overview of what Microsoft 365 is, but I think it's very important to recap that, and for those of you who haven't been on a webinar with us before, it's very important to understand what is Microsoft 365 before we go looking at specific applications. So what is Microsoft 365? It's an umbrella offering of software and services from Microsoft. So we look at Microsoft 365 as the overall umbrella with all of the different piece parts underneath it that make up that service offering. It's available for business, enterprise and education establishments. We're focusing on business and enterprise with the clients that we support. But when we talk about business, we look at the licensing models that we've got there. So business standard, business premium. We look at enterprise, E1, E3, E5 based licenses. Generally speaking, there are some exceptions to this depending on the systems that you're using, but enterprise would be looking at clients, 100, 200 employees plus, whereas business would be the lower side of that. It provides enhanced security. It's very important that we focus on security in every aspect of our organisations, specifically when our people and our data. So Microsoft 365 provides enhanced security to your organisation. It has unrivaled mobility. When we talk about unrivaled mobility, it's the ability to take your Microsoft 365 wherever you're going. I'm sitting on a Mac just now. It's a Mac laptop that I use, but I've also got a phone, I've also got a tablet, I've also got another PC device as well. I can use my Microsoft 365 on any of these devices and I can take it with me wherever I go. And it's a subscription model. This is quite an important factor, and for anyone that's on our webinar today that owns a business or certainly has responsibility for IT within a business, we're very much looking at subscription models across the board now, and it's a much better way to move forward. But the biggest benefit of having a subscription model within Microsoft 365 is really a lot to do with the Office products that we've got. So when we think back to the way that we probably bought Microsoft in the past, or maybe some of you still buy Microsoft in this way, perpetual licenses. So if you bought, for example, Microsoft Office 2010, you paid £300 per license for 2010. That's you've got 2010, you're now using that. In order to go to the next versions, which would have been 2013, 2016, or even 2019, where we are now, you would have had to have invested another 300 or whatever pounds in order to buy that license for that level of Microsoft. But with Microsoft 365 through this subscription model, when you're paying on a per user per month basis, you will always have the latest version of Microsoft available. So we're at 2019 just now. Who knows? We don't know. It could be 2021, it could be 2023, it could be the next model, or they might not even come out with a year stamp on it anymore. But because you've got that subscription model, you will always have the most recent version of Office products. So we'll look at some of the key benefits of Microsoft 365. So there are user benefits, access to the latest business software all the time. We touched on that before. You're always going to have the most recent versions. Office mobile app, so you can work from anywhere. Now, how important is that just now? Where we've been through for the last 6 months. We have staff and employees working in every different area now at home. Some might be still in the office, some might be hybrid in between. But we do need the ability for our employees and for access to our data, regardless of where we are. And the reduction of paperwork through Microsoft 365. There are so many applications in there that we will be covering through time, but things that just ultimately reduces the amount of paper that we use within our organizations. Management benefits, so cloud portal accessibility, any device, anywhere. When I talk about the cloud portal, this is the administration of your Office 365. This is where you can set your policies and set your procedures and work with us in order to make sure that we are, again, it's fundamental, it's the security. I'm going to talk about that a few times here, but we create and manage that security of your data and also make sure that we do it in a collaborative way for your team members. Providing business insights. So within the Microsoft 365 tenants, you can pull out lots of analytics on your data, where your data is stored, who's using it for what reason, etc. And Security Centre for peace of mind. We will touch on security in the next bullet point, in actual fact. So security, artificial intelligence to provide smart insights. Okay, so this is the system can look into all of your data, again, as I said, where it's stored, who's accessing it, who has access to it, to allow you to understand the security of that data and where it sits. And business data is secure and protected. So if you're looking at ISO 27001 and GDPR compliance, within the Microsoft 365, there are a suite of tools in order to make sure that you've got those levels of protection in place. So Microsoft 365, again, as I said, it's the umbrella product. So we've got Office 365 as we would have known it has been referred to. So what's Office 365 giving you? Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, many more applications within there. So that's all included within your Microsoft 365 license. Online services, Exchange. Email is in the cloud now. That's what we should be doing. Okay, so we're pushing email towards Office 365. It's a cloud-based through Exchange environment. OneDrive, we're going to be looking at OneDrive in detail today, and many more. And the advanced services that you get in there is online archiving. So we talked about GDPR just a second or two ago. So online archiving, so how are we archiving our data, specifically with emails? How long are we keeping them for? What's the retention periods? We can set and define all of this within 365. The advanced security features that are included in there as well. We are going we will go through advanced security features of 365 in a later webinar, but just going through that just now. External threat protection. We hear so many stories now of people that have been victims of phishing attacks, giving away credentials through phishing websites, things like that as well. So we need to make sure that we're protecting our data. So through 365, external threat protection can provide various levels of protection for us. Multi-factor authentication is a significant feature of Microsoft 365. So that's making sure that we've got 2 or 3 levels of security in place before we access our data. We need to ensure that we've got multi-factor authentication in place. We also talk about internal data leak prevention. So again, it's about making sure that the data that's held in our organization is staying inside our organization and it isn't being leaked out. We've got device management, and I'll just touch on Microsoft Intune just as an example here. And again, as I said, we're going through a series of webinars, and if that is something that you're interested in, let us know, and we will make sure that you're on the webinar for Microsoft Intune. Microsoft Intune gives us the ability to manage all of our devices through a single portal, all of our Microsoft 365 devices through a single portal. So that is things like, do we want to deploy applications to all of our staff? If we want to deploy it to all, we can manage that through Microsoft Intune, or if we only want to deploy it to certain people, again, we can do that through Intune. So Intune gives us the ability as IT providers to manage devices remotely, specifically around about their Microsoft 365 licensing. So now we'll go on and explore the apps, and for those of you who have been with us before, you'll have seen this wheel before, the wheel of Office 365. So these are applications that are included in Office 365. Please bear in mind, Microsoft 365 is the umbrella above that. So within Office 365, multitude of applications that we can be using within our organizations to aid productivity, creativity, and collaboration. We looked at Power Apps, Power BI, bit of flow in the last webinar, but this time in particular I'd like to focus on SharePoint and OneDrive for Business, two key critical applications specifically designed around data management, data storage. So let's look at SharePoint. We are going to go through a demonstration later in the presentation where I will actually take you into a SharePoint environment. I think it's much easier to understand it if we actually look at it. But just looking at SharePoint there, it's right in the middle and there's lots of things coming off that. So I'm just going to quickly touch on each of the points. Document collaboration with Office apps, key and critical. That is the fundamentally the most important thing for me about SharePoint is that ability to collaborate and work on our Office documentation. Shared content in Teams and Outlook. So we've got different applications around. So we look at Microsoft Teams. We collaborate on documents in Microsoft Teams. In order to be able to do that in Microsoft Teams, we have to have that document sitting somewhere in its back end. And the back end for that is SharePoint. Anywhere access to files with OneDrive. I will go into that in detail, how OneDrive interacts with your SharePoint. There are other applications out there like Yammer and Stream that can integrate with SharePoint. And it provides digital experiences with SharePoint portals and spaces, and I will show you that when I go through my demonstration. Security, security, security. Fundamental, most important factor that we've got here when it comes to making sure that our data is safe. So as I said on a previous slide, there's different levels of multi-factor authentication, the advanced threat protection. There's something else that comes through it depends on the license you have within Microsoft 365. But we can certainly discuss whether you have the license or whether or not you would require an upgrade to have it. But a targeted threat, it's targeted threat protection. So within that, we can actually simulate phishing attacks from within Microsoft 365, and we can actually check and see how people are interacting with these types of emails that are coming in, telling us whether or not we need to do further training within the organization. Artificial intelligence. So I said before, with things like Power BI, we can go in and we can take the data out of SharePoint and we can see how we're interacting with the data, learn more about our data, and the extensibility of it as well. As you will see when I do my demonstration, there's lots of various different applications that you can put into SharePoint in order to help you manage your data that's within it. So we'll have a look at some of the points, further points within SharePoint. So content services, shared files, pages, data, and apps across the 365 platform. Anywhere access to files, simple and secure sharing. The key point there is the anywhere access. We don't need to be tied to a specific office in order to access our data. We can access the data wherever it is most convenient. There might be some of you on the call today who are on the road a lot. Maybe you go out to visit clients, or maybe you go out to visit tenants, or maybe you could be out and about doing your work. But you need to, when you arrive at that location, you need to be able to access a document or access a file. As long as you've got an internet connection and you can satisfy the multi-factor authentication to get into your account, you can get in and get that documentation regardless of where you are. And as I said before, it could be on a mobile phone or it could be on a laptop device. Intelligent intranet and search. I'll show you that within the demonstration, but it's an intelligent search that's within SharePoint. Many of us will have been there before where we know that there's a document held somewhere in our file directory. We don't know much about the document, I can't remember much, but we're off there for a search. And maybe it's going to take us days to go and find that document, or certainly hours anyway. So within SharePoint, we can find documents nice and quickly. We can connect people, news, knowledge, and applications. And it's a modern framework. Okay, so there's applications, workflows, and custom development that can happen within SharePoint to make it work for your organization. OneDrive for Business is the second application that we're going to look at today. So as you can see from my image there, there's no writing around that. I think it's just a nice clear image. We have our OneDrive at the top there, which is a nice form of a cloud. Okay, so our data in OneDrive is cloud-based. And the key benefit of that is the accessibility of that data. You can see there's mobile devices, tablets, laptops, desktop computers there. So that data that is held within OneDrive is accessible through any of these devices through, as I said, a secure connection to the cloud. So I think it's quite important at this point just to point out the key difference there between SharePoint and OneDrive. And it's in the name, as far as I'm concerned. This is the easiest way that I think to remember it. Share. To share is to give to many. Okay, so SharePoint is the shared drive. That is where we have all of our company documentation that various people within our organization need to access. OneDrive, one is individual, one is for you. So OneDrive would be your home drive or your own personal drive where you keep your documents and folders that you are working on. But SharePoint is where we would have the documentation that the whole organization needs to access. So hopefully that makes sense to you. So OneDrive for Business, anywhere access, edit and share your files all on your devices wherever you are. Backup and protect. If you lose your device, you don't lose your files. Let's take ourselves to the situation where you've got a laptop device and you've been saving things to your desktop. I know lots of people still do it. I've been on to PCs before where the desktop is absolutely full of documents. Or maybe you're saving it to your C drive, to your documents folder in your C drive. That means that that document that you're working on is saved to your local device. If, for example, you were to lose your device, or let's say you were a victim of a cyber attack and everything on your device was encrypted or lost, you have therefore lost that documentation. That information is gone. By using OneDrive, it's a cloud location. So by saving everything that you do into your OneDrive, it doesn't matter if you lose or your device is no longer usable. You will still be able to access that data from your new device or from another device. Share and collaborate. So share your documents with your colleagues and collaborate with Microsoft apps, things like Teams, Outlook, example. And files on demand. Access all your files without taking up space on your device. So again, when we're talking about your individual device there, your device might only have a certain size of hard drive. It may have limitations, it may have other things running on it. So by using OneDrive, we're not actually taking any space up on our device for our files and folders. And document scanning. This is a handy tool. I only put this in at the last minute because I thought about it and it's something that I use. So use your mobile device to scan and store documents. So I use this just as an example for expenses process. So if I've got receipts from anything that I've been doing during the month and I need to provide them to the accounts department. So what I do is I go into the OneDrive app on my mobile phone, and then there's a feature within there where basically I can take the receipt and I can just, it's like a camera function, but I take a picture of the receipt and it saves it as a Word document or a PDF or however it is you want it saved into your OneDrive. Okay, so nice and quick snap, saved it there, and then you can move that to a specific folder or file to get that done. So a real nice, quick, easy way of scanning and storing documents using OneDrive. Okay, so we're going to move on to the demonstration. What I would like to do through this demonstration is just take you into SharePoint and OneDrive to show you them in action. I've actually created a demonstration environment. So although it's got references to Dynamic Edge in it, it's not actually Dynamic Edge's SharePoint and OneDrive areas that we're going into. It's a demonstration environment. So there's not a huge amount of data in there, not certainly as much as you would expect to see if I was looking at my own live OneDrive or SharePoint. But I've put some data and stuff in there in order to be able to guide you through the process of how we would use something like SharePoint and OneDrive. The other thing that I'd like to point out at this point is every business is different and every business will look to manage and work with their data in different ways. So although I'm showing you this today, please keep your mind slightly open as to how it could be used within your organization. I'm giving you an overview here of SharePoint and OneDrive and showing you the main benefits and features of SharePoint and OneDrive, but then it would be over to you to discuss with us how would SharePoint work best within your organization. Before I do that, though, I'm going to check in with Andy to see if there are any questions that I can answer just now. They may be that we can answer them during the presentation. But Andy, is there anything there that I should be touching on?
Thanks, David. No, it's been fairly quiet on the Q&A so far. I think everything's kind of been answered and dealt with. So no, I think we're good so far. Thank you.
No problem, Andy. Thanks. Okay, so we'll move on and we'll get across to our demonstration. So if I flick across here, I have logged into a web browser at portal.office.com. Portal.office.com is your main access to your 365 environment. Now, just to explain before we go any further, okay, so things like Outlook, Word, Excel, things like that will be downloaded to your device, so you're using it natively on your device. But the storage locations that are set up on your device for those would be to OneDrive or SharePoint. But we also have the ability through portal.office.com to work with these applications in an online mode. Some of you might already be doing that. I certainly find it very useful. And for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to be showing you how I work with documentation and create documentation in an online mode. But I do have the ability to do that in the native applications that are downloaded to my device also. So we're in portal.office.com, and as you will see, if I click on the top left here, you will see that I have access to all of my Microsoft 365 applications. So going down the left-hand side here, you'll see some of the ones that we've discussed on previous webinars, and there's a lot that we still have to talk about. But as I said before, for the purposes of this demonstration, we are focusing on SharePoint and OneDrive. So the first thing I would like to do is click on SharePoint. So by clicking on SharePoint there, you can see that this takes me to my SharePoint environment. Okay, so these are sites that I have access to through SharePoint. Now I'm going to talk a bit more detail about what the differences are with the different sites in a second. But I would like to focus on company intranet to begin with. So I'm going to click on company intranet. Now, the reason that I've set this up is that, as I said before, every organization is different. But if I look at Dynamic Edge as an example, okay, so we have a group of offices throughout the UK, and we've got different departments within our offices. So we've got a sales department, we've got an accounts department, we've got a technical department, we've got an HR department, okay? This might be relevant to a lot of your businesses out there. So what we want to do is we want to have a SharePoint site, or a company intranet site, as we'll call it here, which is the landing page for all employees within our organization that want to access our company documentation, our company data, but also news and information and things about the organization. Okay, so this is the landing page. What I would recommend is, rather than having to go through the portal.office.com and then click SharePoint and then click company intranet, this page here can be bookmarked. It can actually be the opening page that people get when they open their internet browser. So this is our company intranet page, and I'm going to take you through some of the features that are on this page just now. So as you can see, this big box here, I've just called that keep up to date with our latest blogs. So a lot of the time within a marketing environment, we create marketing material and we put it out to our clients, or we put it out to the wide community through things like LinkedIn or through our website or anything like that. But sometimes we forget to tell our staff what we're talking about. Okay, so this is important here to make sure that our staff know what we're talking about, so that if they engage with any of our clients or any prospective clients, they can be singing off the same song sheet, if you don't mind using that phrase. So what we've done here is we've created to keep up with our latest blogs. So if I do click on view the recent post, that's just going to take me now off to the Dynamic Edge website, where it's got the most recent blog. Again, for just making sure that we tell our staff about the things that we're talking about. This can be anything. This can be links to absolutely anything that you've got within this box. I just use that as an example to show you how we can be displaying this type of information to our team members. We've also got different departments, links to different departments here. Sales department, accounts department, technical department, HR department. I'll go through that in a little bit of detail just shortly. We've got news items. Okay, so we've got a news item here, a new product release. And we've got a news item here, which is a key appointment that Dynamic Edge made. So I'm going to click into that key appointment. And this is the blog item that we put in place when I joined the business, which is almost 6 years ago. And there has been a lot more key appointments since then, but just because I'm doing the presentation, I put the information about myself in there. Okay, so again, we're sharing with our colleagues, we're sharing with our team members any news items that is important to the organisation. You can also click here, and you can add new use items. Okay, so this is a privilege that is put down to administrators or site owners, but it can be opened up to many people. So you could let anybody share their news in this area. Again, a sort of collaboration zone, a discussion area. I've added an area for events. When I talked about these digital applications that we can have within SharePoint, so it's things like this. So we've got events coming up. There's the online webinar that I put on for today. Again, making sure that our colleagues are aware of the things that we are doing. A team builder. Okay, so I've decided that we're going to go for a team builder. I haven't told the owner of the company this yet, but I've decided that on the 13th of November, we're going to go for a team builder to the London Eye. We're actually not, and I doubt we'd even be able to get there just now, but even still, it's just an example of the things that we can put into a SharePoint site to share this information with our team members. And then coming down, we've got a link where we can go into the most recent used documentation. But I'm going to go through documents in just a second. When I talked about sales department, accounts department, technical department, and HR department, what we've done here now is we've created a team site. So looking at the thing we're looking at just now is our company intranet, okay, and it's got documentation in it. I'm going to show you that in a second. But then what we've then got is our team sites for the specific people to go into the areas that are specific to them. So a key driver with SharePoint is making sure that the data that employees or staff are seeing is only relevant to them. It's only relevant to you. So if you're looking for your documentation, you don't want to be going into a file server that's got, you know, screeds and screeds and screeds of folders that have got nothing to do with you. You want to go in and just see the folders that are relevant to you and the work that you're doing. So by clicking into sales department, which we're going to do in a second, we can then hone it into only the stuff that is relevant to us and our job role and what we're doing. But before we do that, we also have a need for documentation for the whole organization. So things like HR policies, health and safety policies, regular documentation, a telephone directory for your internal staff, things like that. That's stuff that every staff member needs to access, and it's not necessarily just down to the individual teams. So if I click on documents here at the top, it'll now take me into a document library held within SharePoint for that type of information. So as you can see, I've put some HR policies and documents in here, put HSEQ documentation, and I've put staff telephone directory as well. So if we look at HR policies and documents, as an example, we click in here, we're now seeing 2 Excels and PDFs. So we've got a couple of PDFs with the policies in here. They're PDF, they can't be changed. Okay, so the department that's responsible for that will put those PDFs up there. But also we've got things like templates that they can use. So let me click on this one just as an example. You can see it's opened it up there in the browser. So I can actually interact with that on an online mode now. And I can update my details and I can put my mileage in and so on and so forth. And then I could save that to another location if I wanted to. But you can just see how easy it is to interact with these documents held within your SharePoint. What I should have said in actual fact when I was there is that you do also have the ability to open in desktop app. So if I clicked on open on desktop app, that would open it on my application that is downloaded to my device. Again, if I'm saving it, it's going to save it back to SharePoint, but it just might be that you, rather than working on it on the online mode, you might prefer to use the downloaded version. I feel that the online versions have probably around about 90% of the functionality that the desktop app has. It doesn't have absolutely everything, but for me in my role, it has everything that I need. Come back out of that folder there, and we also can see that we've got a staff telephone directory here, which is a Word document. So hopefully by that you're starting to see that there is a build-up of an infrastructure there of a file format. Okay, so this is information that is relevant to all people within our organisation. Perfect place for policies and documentation like that. So if we go back to the home page now, I'm going to take us off to sales. So we're going to get a little bit more departmental specific within SharePoint. So click on sales department. So here we are in sales department. So you'll see a very common theme. It's changed from going across the top now. It's a team site. So we've got our links coming down the left-hand side there. You'll see on this one that I've created the news item at the top. Again, so this is news that is specific to the sales department. So was delighted at Dynamic Edge recently to welcome Jared England on board. Jared started with us on Monday. He is actually listening to the webinar today as well. So welcome on board, Jared. But this is a news item that I can share with the sales department to make sure that everybody knows about Jared starting on the Monday. Okay, call Jared and introduce yourself, and things like that, just putting that information out there. Or it could be a news item relating to a new advance in some type of technology that we need the salespeople all to know about, so that when we're out there discussing it with our clients and discussing with potential clients, we can make sure that everyone has the knowledge that they require. We've got a link section here, so a nice quick link off to the Microsoft Partner Portal. We spend a lot of time in there. Tech data login, so this is one of our suppliers. We can log straight directly into the supplier from there. And an information page on Cisco Meraki, again, a product set that we work with quite a lot. So it's giving the people within the sales team the links off to the various places that they require. You can also see here, we've got this activity section here. So you can actually see within the sales department, again, it's only the people that are in this department, the people that have the permissions to be in this department. You will see the different things that people have been editing and working on. So you can see the most recent documents that have been edited. It's very, very handy in actual fact if you can see, oh, I see somebody's been working on that. I actually spoke to that client yesterday. I might phone my colleague just to give them the information that they require that might help them along with that document, just as an example. But to go into documents in a bit more detail, I'd like to pop in here. So I've created, and again, another little file tree in here. So we've got archived documents, we've got existing clients, we've got new opportunities, or we've got proposals. So if I click on proposals, just as an example here, we can see that there's 4 documents in there. Before I go on to work with any of those documents, I'd like to actually just show you how easy it is to create documents within SharePoint or folders within SharePoint. First thing you could do, working on Microsoft Word or Excel or anything like that on your local desktop. So again, we're going back to the native application that you've got. When you do File Save As, you pick Online Destination, you pick SharePoint, you pick the folder and you save it, and it would just appear in here. That's as simple as that. Or alternatively, you can create documents from within here. So if I click on New, you can see we can create a new Word document. What that's going to do is it's going to open Microsoft Word Online for me. Test data, just put that in there. It automatically saves. That's it saved. Coming back now, you can now see that that has saved there. Click on this button here, click rename, and we could go client 5 as an example, rename. And that's as simple as it is to create a document within SharePoint. The other thing that we can also do is we can create further folder structures as well. So test folder, pop that in there, and that's me just now created a folder within that environment. So if I go back to documents now, he says, back to documents and click on proposals, and then there's your test folder, and then you can now have a variety of documents held within there. So hopefully what you're seeing here is that there's a similarity to your traditional tree, your traditional format of your documentation, how it is held within SharePoint. What I would like to do though is I would like to show you one of the main benefits of working with SharePoint. And that is the ability to collaborate. That is the ability for multiple people to work on documents at the same time. How many of us have seen that in our folders, you see copy off, copy off, copy off, sometimes copy off document 1, 2, 3. And that is because when somebody's tried to open a document, it says it's locked for editing by another user. And so what you then done is you do save as in order to get it out of read-only mode. That's fine, and you can start working on that document and you save it in. But that other person was working on it, so all of a sudden we've now got 2 versions of that document. In some cases, you might have 3 or 4 versions of that document. We lose the management of our document control at that point. So with SharePoint, we now have the ability for multiple people to work on a document at the same time. So I'm going to click on Client 2 here, and it's going to open up in Microsoft Word Online. Again, as I said, I'm reiterating this can be done in your native application as well. So I'm working in this document here, and I can see that's fine. I'm working away with it. And then I realized that I need to ask one of my colleagues to help me with this document. So rather than sending it to them, I can drop them a link, which I will do shortly. I'll show you how to do shortly. But then my colleague can actually come in now. Now you can actually see this is actually happening as we speak. So if I just hover up here, you can see that Alex Wilbur, also known as Andy Wilson for the purposes of this demonstration, is now in that document. And if I come across here now, you can also see that Alex Wilbur that's that person's cursor. So Alex can actually now start making changes to this document. And look, I'll go no hands just to prove to you that I'm not doing anything. So there we are, there's changes being made to that document. And I can also make their changes to that document. So there's me, hi there, thank you, Stephen's been put in there by there. So that's 2 people working on this document at the same time. Okay, that can be multiple people, that can be several people. So ultimately what we're trying to achieve here with SharePoint is that we've got one version of the document, okay, it sits in SharePoint and multiple people access it at that location, as opposed to the way it would be done in the past, where we would share that document round and multiple people would have multiple copies of the document. Hopefully that makes sense. Thank you very much, Alex. If you could drop out of that document, that would be great. And Alex is now gone. So if I close that document down now, you'll see that those changes have been made. And you can see that the last update was modified a few seconds ago by myself. Okay. It will always take the update from the most recent person to make a change to the document. But if I'm not happy with the changes that were made in that document, it's really easy now for me to go in and change it. So if I go to version history, we'll now look at the version history of this documentation. Now, apologies, okay, this is American time, not UK time, so it's not 3:35 in the morning in case you're looking at your watch. So we can look at the different changes that have been made to this document. So that was the most recent change there. That was a change that I made earlier today. That was a change that Alex made yesterday, or earlier today, sorry. That was a change that Alex made yesterday, and that's the original document. So this document has been changed so many times by these different people. It might be that those changes shouldn't have been made and we want to take it back to its original version. Okay, so it's super simple to be able to do that. So if we have a look quickly, just to come away from that, first of all, let's look at client 2. It's got the writing that you saw myself and Alex make earlier on. So we're going to come away from that. I'm going to go back to the document. I'm going to go to version history. And I want to take it back to the original version of that document. So I click the download there and I hit restore. You also have the ability to view that version of the document to make sure that's the one that you want. And I'm going to hit OK. What you're going to see now is a version 6 has become available. So I have not lost all of those changes that were made in the past. That's very important. All of that stuff is still there in the background and we can refer to it if needs be or restore to it if needs be. But what has happened now is I've just restored it to the original version, but it's made this new copy of it. So now if I click into client 2 by rights, that information is now gone. Okay, I've just quickly restored that back. So that's a simple example of it, but you could be in quite a complex document at the time when you're doing that. So it's a very useful feature. So I want to talk some of the other things that you can do with this. Okay, one of the key points for me is the ability to share. Okay, so as I said before, traditionally we'll have used emails to share documents around. I have seen examples of clients in the past using links to documents, which is excellent, and that's exactly what I'm looking at just now. But let's take the example that I've created this document and I want to share it with some of my colleagues just to check if they're happy with it, just to check if they want to check my spelling or they want to add anything to it. So rather than taking that document and emailing it round, because again, as I said earlier on, you've got 5 copies of that document in circulation. And the other aspect of that is you're clogging up your inbox and outbox and with sent items. And if it's a big mail, it could be 2 or 3 megabytes in size. Again, it's just taking up space. If I click the share item on that, I can type in the email address or the contact within my organization. Again, I'm going to use Alex just as an example here. And then I can type a message. Hi, Alex. Please review and send. So what that's now done is that has sent an email to Alex and it said with the content of my email saying please review and then a link. And if Alex clicks on that link, it opens it up in SharePoint and Alex can go in and start to amend that document. Nice and simple. We don't need to be emailing the actual physical document to people anymore. We keep it in SharePoint and we provide people access in through that link. It's a key point of sharing data within our organization. We can also manage access to that document. So if we have created a document, so say for example, I've created a document in a specific folder, but it's only relevant to me, and I really, it's not. This is more administrator led, but if it's not relevant to other people, I can actually manage access to make sure that the specific people can access that document. I think it's an important point at this point just to point out and make sure that people are aware that within SharePoint environment we create security groups. which means that we put people into different groups, which will allow them access to the different areas and the different documentation, but depending on their level, their department, so on. But we can do that at a granular level as well, which you can see. You can download that document if you want to, so you can actually take it out and download it to your device. When we're talking about OneDrive and SharePoint, we really don't want to be doing that anymore, but you do have the ability to be doing it. As I said, rename. Pin to top, quite handy. Click pin to top. It's actually put the document there to the top. So if you've got a folder that's got 100 documents in it and there's one document in there that you refer to the most or is the most used document, you can pin it to the top so that it's nice and simple for people to get to. They don't have to go searching for it. And version history we've gone through. Alert Me, it's quite smart. Alert Me is a good feature in here. So if you've created a document within your SharePoint site and it's a really important document and you just want to make sure nobody tampers with it, nobody changes it because you've been working on it for ages, you can put Alert Me on it. And if I click on Alert Me, what will now happen is it'll give me options. So basically it tells me it can email me or it can even text me. It can send me a text message if somebody goes into that document and makes a change to it. Very much Big Brother's watching, but again, as I said, the important thing here is if it's an important document and you want to make sure that you're just keeping the management of it yourself, you want to make sure if anybody is going into it, for example, Alex had gone into that document, I get a quick message, I can call Alex and just say, listen, that document is quite important, would you mind using another one for the purposes of what you're doing, something like that. So Alert Me is quite neat. So that's documents and document management within SharePoint. Again, it's a bit of an overview. We can go through this in a lot more detail for anybody that would like to see it. There are other things that you can add to this. So we can have image libraries. We can have discussions. We can have discussion boards on the main homepage as well. I've got the ability to edit here because I'm an administrator, but I can add any web parts into this to have, as I said, that discussion board's quite nice. So if you want to have an idea of put up a statement and get team members to discuss and collaborate on it there, you can very much do that. So that's SharePoint, as I said, in a nutshell. What we've looked at there is we've gone to the company intranet. We'll just the quickest way to do this, we'll just come back through there. So we've gone through the company intranet. We've then looked at the sales department. We've looked at the accounts department. We've got a marketing department across there. I think it's important just to point out with that security features that I talked about earlier on. If an employee you have is a member of sales and marketing group, they will only see the sales and marketing group information there. For my permissions allow me access to the accounts group as well, so that's why I see that. But people will only be able to access the sites and departments that is specific to them. It's quite an important point to factor out. So the next thing I'd like to have a look at is OneDrive. So we take OneDrive down here. So bear in mind what I said earlier. So we've got SharePoint, we share, it's for many. OneDrive, individual, it's for you. So we click on OneDrive here, and what you'll be able to see is my OneDrive file here. So my files, OneDrive. So this is things that I've got saved. So you would have done this before if you're saving to your desktop or you're saving to your C drive or your home drive. This is where you would now save that. You would save that to your OneDrive. So that's your documentation that you're working on. It could be pictures, could be documents, could be anything. So I've created some folders within there as well, and I've got an Excel spreadsheet and a Word document that's within my OneDrive. I just want to point out, we don't need to go through this in detail because we did it on the previous when we were looking at SharePoint, but you've got all of these features that were the same as SharePoint. So the version history, you can take it back to a previous version of that document if you realise you've made a mistake. You can do the manage access. So if you've shared a document with someone else in the past, you can restrict that access back. You can share that document. So if I was to share this document here with Alex, I would be sharing access into my OneDrive to that specific document for Alex to come in and look at and collaborate with me on. Alex isn't getting access to the rest of my OneDrive, only that individual document that I'm sharing out with Alex at that point. Another real benefit across here within using OneDrive is you've now got access to your shared libraries as well. So remember when I showed the SharePoint slide in my PowerPoint presentation, I talked about access through OneDrive. So I'm in my OneDrive just now, and maybe you don't even need to go into the SharePoint site, because as you can see, if I click on sales department there, I've got access to all of the folders and all of the documents that we were working on within SharePoint. I've got access to it from my OneDrive. So it's a single location to go to for all of your individual or shared documentation. the company intranet is also there. So the HSEQ documentation, the HR documentation, things like that are in there for me. However, and here's the little however, we are reliant on an internet connection for all of this. Okay, if we don't have an internet connection, we cannot access everything that I've been showing you there just now. Okay, that is a restraint, I suppose, by using these cloud-based services, with any cloud-based services. Luckily now, though, we've all got good 4G access, we've all got internet connectivity in our houses and within our office environments. But there is going to be that occasion where you are traveling somewhere. You could be in a hotel where there's not a secure Wi-Fi for you to use. And you need to work on documentation. You know that you're going to have to work on some of your documentation. So what we can do in that situation there, okay, so if we go back to, let's go back to SharePoint for an example. And I'm going to go into the sales department, drop it directly in there. I'm going to go to documents, oops. And I know that I'm going to be working on proposals. Oops, clicked the wrong one there, I think. Documents, proposals. So I know that I'm going to be working on proposals while I'm offline, while I can't access the internet. There's a very handy feature within SharePoint here when you're using OneDrive alongside it. If I click this button sync, oops, sorry about that. If I click that button sync, what's now going to happen is that is going to sync that folder with my OneDrive. But it's not syncing that folder with my OneDrive for the online state. It's actually putting it into my OneDrive, which I can access on my device. Bear with me here. So when you've got OneDrive installed on your device, it keeps it downloads a temporary copy. Essentially, it's the easiest way to describe it onto the device there, so that you can access it on an offline mode. Okay. So if we now go across to my OneDrive, if I can find it, here it is here. You can now see that Sales Department Proposals, this is my file explorer on my Mac. You can now see that Sales Department Proposals is that folder is now in my OneDrive. So that therefore means if I now come offline, if I disconnect from the internet, I can now interact with the documentation that's in there on my OneDrive. What will then happen is that as soon as I go back to an internet connection, as soon as I connect my device to the internet, through that it could be 4G, it could be in the house, it could be in the office, that data that I have changed within that OneDrive will sync back to this SharePoint site. So we've synced it down to our device so that we can work on it in an offline mode. And then as soon as we get back to the internet connection, it syncs it back to SharePoint so that any changes that I made go back to the SharePoint site. It's a very key feature. And something that really has benefits, you know, and I've seen these benefits. I've used these benefits a lot before as well. While we're doing that, it could be, let's just say that it's client 2 that you're working on. While we're got that offline, we can actually move that document. We can lock that document down through Manage Access to make sure that it gets locked down so that nobody else can make changes to it while I've got it offline. So it just helps with that document management. So quick overview, conscious on time. We've gone through SharePoint. So we've looked at creating a company intranet site, having team sites, having documentation that is available to the whole organization, sectioning off documentation and data for different departments of our organization. Of course, you might be, if you're the managing director of a business, you'll have access to all sites. If you're a technical director, you might have access to the technical site, and you might have access to the accountant site as well. So there's the areas of the business that's relevant to you. We can share news, we can collaborate with our colleagues, we can have discussion boards within the SharePoint environment. But most importantly, we put a very effective document management process in place to allow the documents that are held to be done so in a secure way and a collaborative way as well. And we've also looked at OneDrive. We've looked at OneDrive being your individual access to your documentation, where you get your own files through My Files here, but also access to your shared documentation that is held within the SharePoint site as well. So hopefully that has covered enough of OneDrive and SharePoint for you. I do appreciate it is an overview, and we have gone through that relatively quickly with the 1 hour window that we had. However, that said, If anybody would like to go through it in any more detail to discuss how you could get more out of SharePoint for your organization, if you've never even thought about it before and you're thinking, well, that could be really useful for us, we would like to move our data to the cloud, but we're not sure where to start, please don't hesitate to give us a call, any of us a call at Dynamic Edge, and we'll certainly be delighted to chat to you about it and to give you a fuller demonstration if you require, or to give you some examples of what we could set up for your business. Andy, do we have any questions that have come through in the Q&A?
We do have a few. I have been answering one or two kind of on the fly, but we do have a few that I've kind of lined up as quite good points to either cover or to just to highlight. So the first one there is simply what does OneDrive do that SharePoint doesn't? And I appreciate it's obviously a question before we kind of got into the full demonstration between SharePoint and OneDrive, but I thought maybe if you want to just have a brief answer of that one.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, as I said on several occasions through this, one-to-one, share-to-many. Okay, so SharePoint is the environment where we've got our shared documentation. Okay, it's documentation that is available to, depending on your department, could be the whole company, could be a department specific, but that's where we manage our data that is shared between all. OneDrive is the area where you would manage your own documentation, things that you're working on individually. It might be a work in progress. So you might just be working on a document before it then gets sent across to the SharePoint site to be shared with all, or to be available to all. But within that OneDrive environment, you have access to your shared documentation as well. So if we think traditionally, when we've got the shared drive, it could be your S drive, your P drive, your X drive, whatever it's called within your organization, and that's where all of that documentation is held. That's the SharePoint aspect of it. That's where all of that is. OneDrive is your home drive, your C drive, whatever you want to call it there. And you can work on your documentation there. And again, I'm just reiterating here, with access to that shared documentation, so that you don't have to be going into two different platforms to get to it. Hopefully that's all right there, Andy.
Yeah, no, I think that is absolutely fine. So the next question is just around the kind of collaboration. So if you are writing on a shared document, doesn't it auto save your details before you can save a local version? And the answer is yes. And there was a couple of other questions very similar to that. When you're collaborating on a document, naturally you may have things like your expenses report or things that are shared documents, but that are for completion by the individual. Now, a lot of that can be controlled through SharePoint permissions. You can set a document to be, yes, it's a shared document, but not editable. So if they do want to fill in that form or fill in that document, you can basically make the SharePoint permissions to allow them to be able to save a copy elsewhere if they need to.
Yeah, I think an example of that, Andy, would be if it was that expenses template that we looked at, the mileage and expenses, excuse me, and it's held within the HR folder. So as Andy said there, the permission is set up to make sure that that one can't be edited, but you are allowed to take a copy of it. So what you would do is you go to the HR folder, you would take a copy of it and you would put it in your OneDrive, or you might put it into the sales department folder, that you've got your own folder within the sales department, just as an example. So you can do that. But the collaboration piece, the multiple people working on documents, I think the best example of that was when Andy and I were working on that proposal for a prospective client. We can sit and be working in there. I might say, right, I'll work on the pricing, Andy, if you work on the narrative at the top, and we can both be sitting working away at that at the same time, rather than having to wait till one person's finished before the next person can start, again, making us that more effective.
Excellent, thank you, Stephen. Okay, the next one there is obviously something worth highlighting. And that's to do with nested folders. So folders within folders in your file structure. There is a limit as to how much a complete end-to-end file path link that SharePoint can handle. That, I think, needs to highlight the importance of planning your file structure. Whether you're moving to SharePoint, whether you're developing an existing SharePoint document storage, is to plan how you want your folders laid out, and by planning your file structures in a kind of appropriate way, it will prevent things like the URL character limits.
That's what I've just highlighted on the screen there, Andy. So the URL character limits here are what's significant and important. And now, don't quote me on this, but I think it's 250 odd characters, something like that. So every time you add a folder, it's just going to be adding an extra line in this link here, an extra word or something like that. But you would have to get significantly deep in a folder tree in order to get to that maximum of 200. I think it's 200 odd. As I say, please don't quote me on that. But you know, you'd have to have a very, very deep folder tree in order to get to that limit.
Perfect. No, that is excellent. Another question here: can collaboration only happen using the online portal and or native apps? So I think that's obviously multiple people amending the document. Will it only work in the online version of the applications, or will it work in the locally installed versions as well?
Yeah, absolutely works in both. Simple answer. It works in the online version and also works in the downloaded versions, essentially. So when I say the downloaded version, apologies, I don't mean you're downloading the document, it's just that you're opening it in the native application. So I've had it before as well, where I'm sitting working on a document and all of a sudden I'll see Andy's name appear on the document, which means that he's come into that document, you know, and he'll see that I'm in it and he'll maybe just go out because he knows that I'm using it or something like that. But yeah, in the native application, the collaboration works as well.
Excellent, thank you, Stephen. So again, just another one there. If you're working on a document alongside somebody else, and they save the document, but you then want to undo something, how exactly does that work? I wonder whether that's more around previous versions or things like that.
Yeah, again, it's version history that we would be looking at there. So if they've saved the document and you want to undo their changes, you would go into version history that I demonstrated on the document earlier, and it will show you each copy of that document. I'll just quickly show it again just to make sure that we're okay with that. So if we go to document 2 there as an example, and I go to version history, I can see the previous versions of that document and who's made those changes. So I can actually just jump to, if I look at Alex's change there, and I can actually view that document. I can go in and quickly see. So actually, let's open that up on another screen. So bear with me. I'll actually just, I'll not open the document, but go into version history, and you can actually just click on that one and restore that version of it. So you can take it back to your previous version. But as I showed earlier on when I was doing this, is it will keep all copies, even the wrong copy. It'll keep everything, so that if Alex came back and said, "Oh, you took out my changes," that's fine. We can go and we can restore that version and save it elsewhere.
Excellent, thank you. And also, just lastly, what you mentioned earlier on about the search facility in SharePoint. I wonder whether there's just a minute to go on that.
Thank you very, very much. So let's just put something in here. Bloatware, what a great word, isn't it? So we'll pick the word bloatware. So we're just going to go back to the sales department. Keep doing that. Sorry, apologies. Back to the home page there. Sorry for these credentials coming up here. It's just because I'm using this demonstration environment that it's coming up with that. But if I just use the search box at the top there and I look for bloatware, return on that. Why is that not working now? It might just be because of those credentials. Tell you what we'll do. I'll talk through it. I'll talk through it just now. I think just because I'm using this demonstration environment, it's not going to allow me to do that. So I'll talk through what happens here. So with the search function within SharePoint, all of your documentation is held within SharePoint is indexed. So if you, for example, you know that you were working on a document this time last year, and you had mentioned the word bloatware in it. Maybe that's all that you remember. I remember having making a document about bloatware. I don't remember what it was called. I can't remember the date that I did it. I can't even remember who I sent it to, which client it was for, but I do remember that we were talking about bloatware. we can actually just type that into the search box. Apologies that it's not working for me just now. As I said, it's because I'm in this demonstration environment. But if I type in the word bloatware, it will bring up any document held within SharePoint that has any reference to the word bloatware in it. Absolutely any reference to it at all. So it's going to shrink that search criteria down for you, and you can quickly go through and something will trigger in your mind and say, yes, that was the document there that I was looking for. So it's a very intuitive search function that's within SharePoint that, as I said, indexes all of your documents so that you can search for it by the date it was created, the person it was created for, the title of it, the content within it. And I don't know, Andy, if there's anything else that you can add to that.
No, I think that's covered it fairly well. So no, thank you for that. I think that's probably all we've got time for today. But no, thank you very much for everyone's questions.
Perfect. That's taken us lovely on to 12 o'clock. So thank you to everyone for joining our webinar. Again, the webinar recording will be available. So if you would like access to it, please do get in touch with Bryony. Bryony will provide that for you. Also, keep an eye out for future webinars that are coming up. If you would like to engage with us about SharePoint further, please don't hesitate to give us a call. Appreciate your time, everyone, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you.